Hi, I have read the Daniel textbook in its entirety, and I chose today to talk about the ethical principle of autonomy. I struggle with this. I struggled with this concept prior to this course because I wondered about allowing my client to make clearly harmful choices without giving my own thoughts, particularly like during internship. I've worked with a handful of abused victims, and I struggled with kind of allowing them to continually be in a relationship with their abuser without, offering some of my own insight on a healthy relationship. Um, but thinking it through, I recognize that it's not for me to impose my own values, even when it comes to what is a healthy relationship. Obviously, mandatory reporting is a whole other concept that comes into play with minors and elder abuse and etc. But just recognizing that how in the Daniel text, the author highlights the idea of faith in God's redemptive power and then also the client's choice. And so I think my difficulty was not so much respecting the client's choice, but grappling with the idea of like giving approval for action that was like directly in conflict with my own values. Um, I think looking through it all, I've grappled with that and realized that I like get to I kind of have this picture of like sitting on the train of life with my client as if they're the conductor and I'm along the ride and I'm there to process that train with them, and that's my role. And I think I recently watched the movie The Shack. I'm not here to argue like the theological implications of that movie, but it gave me a sense of understanding for like why God allows evil and even just the ways in which God respects our own autonomy and how I can still operate within my own values and who I am as a person, integrated, while not necessarily stating my opinions or taking away from the client's autonomy. Moving on to kind of where I feel like I'm still wrestling is with the still the personal values specifically within the ACA Code of Ethics. It says counselors are aware of and avoid imposing their own values, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. Counselors respect the diversity of their clients, trainees, and research participants and seek training in areas in which they are at risk of imposing their values onto clients, especially when the client counselor's values are inconsistent with the client's goals or discriminatory in nature. I think the part of this statement that I still struggle with is like if the client's direct goal feels like it's in direct conflict with my own values. Like if their direct goal is for me to help them process, like before they get an abortion, if their direct goal is for me to help them make that choice and live with that, I have a really hard time like moving them towards that goal. And I feel like even bracketing it feels challenging to me. Um, I just like wonder, like, I think I could state with my client, hey, I can be there with you while you are processing this and I can sit with you in that. Um, but I'm not here to like help you make any choice. And so I think the idea that has helped me is the idea of like ongoing consultation and prayer and releasing my clients to the Lord and implementing that practice after a day of sessions. I think is a really helpful kind of like routine that I can do now, and also really continuing to seek consultation with other Christians because I do think like there is a level to which like we feel this internal um, battle when we're hearing our clients say things that feel like they're harmful to them or really contradictory to like our own personal values. And I think that there's a reality that stuff does come up, and working through it in the moment and continuing to like look for support outside of session. Um, and something else that I read from his name is Dr. Reber, and he talks about in this article about, like, it's called naturalism, theism, and the risk of professional values imposition in psychotherapy with theistic clients, is he kind of talks about this idea that, like, we're also at risk of, like, taking away all of the spiritual components, like, whatsoever. Therapists can kind of try to avoid all spiritual and religious issues in an attempt to steer clear of personal religious value imposition, and that, like, may actually do our clients a disservice. And I think that's something that I realize I'm also still wrestling with, is the idea of, like, okay, how do I talk about my clients' beliefs in a way that is supportive of them? Because I think the spiritual component needs to still come into the room if that's important to the client. And so, how do I, like, with a fellow Christian or someone of another faith, how do I allow space for conversations around God, while also not imposing my values into those conversations? And so I think that's kind of the last thing that I'll say, um, that I was sitting with.